COVID hit us back 2 years back, and we totally shifted
Yeah.
the way we work. We all used to come to office. Now, working remotely is a reality. Even though we have return to office policies globally, there will be at least 10 or more percent of the people who will be completely remote on an average.
Right.
So, how
Yeah.
do you bring the same level of productivity that you had in office, the same level of connections, relationships, and getting work done? The current tools in the
Hmm.
market do not suffice for that. Like we can talk
Yeah.
if we are talking on a virtual camera, but it doesn't really give that feeling of sitting next to each other. How do you do that?
Correct.
That is where
Yeah. Yeah.
Meta will be shaping the future. So Meta is
Hmm.
products which will give you the presence that you're working with each other in the same room, seeing each other's body language, and able to get the same level of collaboration and productivity.
Hi, friends, and welcome to this exciting episode of Leading with Data, where I have Arpit Agarwal with me. And Arpit is currently a data science leader at Meta and brings an immense experience of working across different startups in different geographies. So he's currently leading Workspace as a product for Meta. But previous to that, he has worked in shared mobility, fintech, and a few consulting practices. So, looking forward to learn from you, Arpit, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, first of all, Kunal, for inviting me. I think it's a fantastic initiative of connecting the leaders in data science space to anyone who wants to learn data science and want to grow in this space. And super excited to be part of your show.
Sure, great, thanks. So, Arpit, let's start with your journey and how did you get into analytics and data science, and then starting from your, let's say, college days at BITS Pilani to all the way up to where you are. So, if you can share, what have been the key highlights, the key moments in the journey, that would be a great starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the college days, I started with I studied from the Goa campus in 2005. I started my journey there, and I give a lot of credit to the foundations that were made when I was doing my engineering degree, computer science degree in BITS. And the thing is
Hmm.
that it helped you discover yourself because the earlier part of my life was more academic, and I would say I was a nerd. To be honest, I didn't really explore myself, what are my other interests, which was happening in BITS. And
And when you say nerd, was it, I mean, you were more academically oriented, or this was just, you'll pick up a side project and then start building a software alongside your school work?
no, I would say the former. I was very
Okay,
academically
okay.
oriented, and we live in a society, and that point of time, if you get good grades,
Hmm.
you're good in studies,
Got it.
you get good opportunities in
Hmm.
the future, you get to good colleges. But BITS was
Okay.
one place. To be honest, we did not
Hmm.
pay a lot of emphasis on attendance. So you can actually,
Sure.
as long as you're excited about the course that you're attending, you are, you can actually try to divert interest to other things as well. And uh,
Hmm.
in BITS, it happened that I discovered my initial interest in data interpretation. So I used to
Hmm.
run a club there called Puzzles Club in BITS, where we
Interesting.
used to,
Hmm.
think about the day-to-day puzzles that we solve in our life, or puzzles that might be asked in the interviews. And I was helping the students of BITS in preparing for that. And we used to do a lot
Hmm.
of interpretation there. And then when
Hmm.
I progressed and started preparing for CAT, for MBA entrance exams, I realized that I had a high interest in data interpretation, DI, what we call in CAT. Uh, right.
Hmm.
So that was my first interaction with something called as data. Data science did not exist as a field in course curriculum at that point of time. Right.
Of course, yeah.
Especially thanks to big companies such as Fractal, Mu Sigma, at that point of time, who brought this concept to India and who built this industry out in the market. No, so after that, after I finished my computer science engineering from BITS, I got a job at Oracle, and I
Mhm.
tried to get a job which was not core into computer science engineering or software development, but more towards the data side. So I was in the data warehousing and business intelligence unit of Oracle. So we had actual
Okay.
clients who used to
Mm-hmm.
design, who needed Oracle's help in designing warehouses, and also build business intelligence report on top of which they can make business decisions. For example, how much they should sell, how much should be the inventory, how much sales targets are they meeting. So, and that is where I realized that there is something about this field that excites me, because
Mm-hmm.
you're able to influence the decision making using data, and not many people
Mm-hmm.
were doing this at that point of time. Then I
And was this realization over time? So did it build up over time, or this was like a specific meeting, or a discussion where this all of a sudden was something which you realized, and then it started
I think for me, I was a bit lucky that it happened to me, that I
building. Okay,
selected in a
interesting.
field in which
Mm-hmm.
you had to build data warehouses. I learned how to write SQL at that point of time. It was not really taught in
Okay.
school, right? We would be taught Java and other programming languages in the computer science.
Okay.
But then we got taught SQL and how to build data warehouse in Oracle. So it happened that
Mm-hmm.
when we started interacting with clients, this was a customer facing role. So we interacted with clients, and they used to be excited about the reports we generate. And then we realized that whatever work we do is meaningful and has some real business impact. Uh, and
Mm-hmm.
I come from a background where my dad and my brother, everyone is in professional services, and other relatives are in business. So I was the first engineer, you can say, from our family. So
Mm-hmm.
naturally, the things that excite me are things that are more close to business, that can be used to improve business. And that is where I
Okay.
felt analytics plays a very, very pivotal role. It helps in
Mm-hmm.
decision making. So at that point of time, I decided that I want to learn business more. I want to learn how to expand
Mm-hmm.
business, and I did my MBA. I went to Narsimunji.
Okay.
I learned marketing. I learned operations. I learned finance. I majored in finance at that point of time. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but then I got a good grasp of business, build a good network, and again, luckily, I got a job in Mu Sigma after that. Mu Sigma came to campus
Okay.
for the first time. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
in Narsimunji. I think they just selected one or two people from Mumbai. I was luckily a part of that group, and
Mm-hmm.
we went to Mu Sigma. And Mu Sigma does this amazing thing where they had at that point of time a 1 month boot camp to train
Yeah.
on analytics, because there were no trained people out there in the market. So it was a university.
Correct.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
this is where
I
I
remember.
learned analytics, like most of it, what I use today, like the basic fundamental
Mm-hmm.
concepts. And then you start dealing with
Mm-hmm.
clients. You get more responsibility early on in your career when you are in consulting. So I worked for Mu Sigma, one of the top, worked with one of the top brands like Microsoft, eBay, uh, and consulted them for analytics. Then I moved on to Cartesian Consulting. Cartesian Consulting,
Mm-hmm.
uh, at the base of it, is more into marketing analytics, but also they do a lot of
Yeah.
business analytics. And I work for fashion retail group there. I was consulting them
Mm-hmm.
for Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail. So we set up the analytics
Interesting.
for a fashion retail firm, and fashion retail has been led very traditionally till then. They did not
Mm-hmm.
use a lot of analytics as their core job. So we build things like demand forecasting for them so that they can decide, what type of discounts they can give. We built
Mm-hmm.
net promoter score system, implemented that in the fashion retail industry, and set up the complete base of team there. At that
Mm-hmm.
point of time, I realized that I wanted to be even more closer to the business, and then I pivoted my career towards product companies. I joined
Got it.
Zoomcar. I
Mm-hmm.
got an opportunity to
Yeah.
join Zoomcar, and Zoomcar, I would say, was a life changing experience for me. I was there for a couple
Mm-hmm.
of years. I was given good responsibility of building out the data science stream from scratch. Like we had, uh, I would say, around three members, and we expanded the team to more than 20 when I exited the
Okay.
company.
Interesting.
And
Mm-hmm.
worked on very, very interesting problems, like how do you use data from the cars to
Mm-hmm.
improve the driving behavior. So we used to get.
And you would have your own sensors, or this was directly connecting to some of the softwares from the OEMs?
Yeah, so there was a third party OEM who used to provide us with
Mm-hmm.
sensors, and they
Okay.
then send us data, real time data of how fast the car is moving, what are
Mm-hmm.
the things you're using in the car. And we use that data to bring some business value, as in we built the India's
Mm-hmm.
driver scoring system. Will
Hmm.
tell you how good of a driver you are in real time, and it will tell you whether you need to, say not do fast acceleration, not do hard braking, not take sharp turns. And over time, it helps in reducing accidents. It helps in reducing the maintenance cost of your cars. So that's the real
Interesting.
purpose of
Interesting.
that, right? So that's
And then how much was of this was, let's say, rule driven versus machine learning driven versus, let's say, some parts of deep learning?
I would say it was not really rules driven. It had some
Hmm.
kind of deep learning, a lot of statistics used to build it. Now, if you see
Okay.
that
Hmm.
India is a country with varied terrains, there are some you will find
Yeah.
hill terrains, you will find downhill, and the way you drive cars is very different on different type of roads. You would have road with
Hmm.
potholes, so you'll get a lot of variance in data, and you use a lot of
Hmm.
statistics to kind of smoothen out that variance and realize that, okay, what is the actual driving behavior. So I would say that the core of these models were more statistical driven than deep learning. That was,
Got it.
and then we use that data to interpret that what is the behavior, and then correlated that with things like accidents, correlated that with maintenance costs, and try to derive what is the right behavior.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. So you were essentially trying to segregate the signal from the noise because of different terrains, and that's why kind of simulating or modeling the underlying behavior.
Yes, exactly. And then when my
Mhm.
journey was with Zoomcar was finished, I moved on to the fintech company Khatabook. Khatabook company at that point.
Just one question. So you mentioned that Zoomcar, the journey with Zoomcar was very special for you. So one was you were setting the team and growing it up. So I'm presuming that's one reason, and then the nature of problems. Any other kind of aspect of that? Because I think this is the place where you kind of went from someone who was dealing with clients in the previous roles to almost becoming a leader and then leading a team. So just if I have to double click on that period, what would be those aspects of the role which stand out?
There are two aspects to this role. One was
Hmm.
exercising influence without authority, and
Hmm.
second is collaboration, which came into
Hmm.
prominence when you shift to someone consulting versus someone leading while sitting inside the company. And
Yeah, yeah.
especially the project that I talked about is the driver scoring system. Now, it's not that this
Hmm.
data we started collecting when I joined the company. We had this data since many years, but there was
Hmm.
less belief that we could do something with it. And even,
Hmm.
we had to make trade-offs. Should we do it internally, in-house, or should we outsource things like this? But because it was very fundamental to the behavior we wanted to drive, that is like really have good driving behavior, not drive rash, and reduce accidents and save lives, we thought that we should build it in-house. And
Hmm.
I think that is the experience I really cherish, when you talk to people and hear them out and convince them that why we should make it in-house versus put it externally.
Hmm.
Another thing that was interesting is that this was the first time you get to work directly with all the CXOs of the company. So I was leading the
Yeah.
center of analytics. We made the center of analytics.
Hmm.
So you have to provide insights to marketing, how to grow the product. You have to provide to operations. It's for a very operations heavy company, Zoomcar. So how to manage
Hmm.
operation in order to make sure that we are providing the right support and customer is happy with it. They get the cars on time.
Hmm.
The cars are clean, like as
Yeah.
simple as that.
Hmm.
And then how do we make the product? For example, we built the dynamic pricing system for Zoomcar. Till then,
Yeah.
it was heuristic
Hmm.
based, so we made it dynamic,
Right.
like Uber would do.
Hmm.
So we tied up with professors from Carnegie Mellon. I remember there was Professor Abhishek who we worked with, and we reviewed our dynamic pricing systems, and then we implemented it uh, in
Interesting.
Zoomcar. So this is the level of opportunities you get when you work inside a product company and are in the position to lead from the front.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's phenomenal. And then you moved to Khatabook, and you were mentioning
Yeah.
about Khatabook.
So Khatabook at this space was the fastest growing startup in the world. Like we would compare that to
Yeah.
Slack and how fast it would grow.
Hmm.
It grew in my at the time I was there. It grew to almost 50 million installed base, with
Okay.
maybe 10 million or so active users monthly. And when I say users, actually
Mhm.
these are small and medium businesses. So acquiring users is still easier, but acquiring businesses is a
Right.
very tough job. Um,
Correct. Correct.
and
Mhm.
at that point of time, Khatabok, I was lucky that it was a very data driven company. They would love to have
Mhm.
decisions based on data, whether it's how to grow, how to optimize campaigns, how to measure the success of different product features that we are launching, uh, how to keep
Interesting.
track of the goals that we set for the organization. So being a part of it, setting the goals for the organization, and also like setting the company analytics structure. What should be the
Mhm.
expectations from each and every level of the analyst that we have in the company? Setting up the machine learning team for the company, the analytics team, collaborating with the what should be the data storage structure, beyond onboarded tools, self analytics tools like Amplitude and Mixpanel to help
Mhm.
decentralize the power of analytics inside the company, and product managers could self-serve themselves. So I think it was very enriching, though the span was not that good, that big, but the quality of experience was really good. We started giving out loans basis machine learning
Mhm.
models, where it used to predict
Wow.
who is a more credit-worthy person, business to give loans, and what should be the interest rate we should give loans at. So,
Interesting.
and we
Mhm.
used to use data that is not we didn't get from the credit bureau, because a lot of
Mhm.
market like small shops who use Khata book
Okay.
is an unorganized sector. They would not have a large footprint
Yeah.
in the big banks. So how do you use the data
Mhm.
that they give in the app to derive whether
Yeah.
what is the flow of cash flow for the company and how much loan we can?
Got it.
Very interesting.
Interesting. And then, yeah, just again, double clicking on that experience. So, a couple of questions, right? First, it's not very usual that companies at that stage when they're like growing crazily to have so much focus on database decision making. So what were the drivers on that? And so that's one question. And then the second one was that you mentioned that a lot of data challenges would have come with SMEs, right? It's not simple to get that data. So would love to see, did you use alternate data, or you were focusing a lot on uh, cleaning and making sense out of that
Yeah,
data? But let's address the first one.
great questions. So I'll answer the first one. The data-driven
Mm-hmm.
culture in startups, you're absolutely right that not many companies would start with data. But this comes from the vision of founders. The founders of the
Mm-hmm.
company, let's say Ravish Naresh, he has founded multiple companies before. And over time, they
Yeah.
realized that what is the right thing to do at the start. You learn from your failures, you
Mm-hmm.
learn from your success. And they had the vision that we should bring a data leader on board very early on
Mm-hmm.
in the company, and they made this role very central, as in the data leader would sit as a part of the leadership team instead of reporting to a product role or a tech role. So
Mm-hmm.
it comes from the vision of founders, and they reap the value of it, right? And you could see that how much Khatabok has grown over time and how well they are doing right now. um,
Yeah.
to the second question around the data, we used to face a lot of problems with data. And think about it, that Khatabuk was almost there in every city, every town, every village in India. There's
Yeah.
50 million
Yeah.
businesses who are using it. There would be challenges around languages. People would input text
Right.
in Khatabuk in so many different languages, more than 20 languages, right? They would
Yeah.
upload handwritten notes. They would do a kacha khata bill, take a photograph and upload it and use it for reference,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
They would, yeah, and sometimes the data would be junks. There would be people who are testing out the app instead of using it very diligently. There would be customers who would not be using it the right way. Like there were the customers who would diligently use it and put the right data, and then because there were a lot of dummy users sometimes as well. So what it means is
Mm-hmm.
that can you rely on the data what they're putting,
Yeah.
right? If you're, for
Mm-hmm.
example, giving
Mm-hmm.
out loans, can you rely on the cash flow data that they're putting? We used
Correct.
data around the name of the businesses. So we try to
Mm-hmm.
understand what kind of customers or industries are using Khatabok. Again, that data is very challenging because there are different languages people put in. People don't put in full names, right? When they write, they can just write anything. So there was a humongous data challenges in terms of knowing your customer. Who is this person
Correct.
who's using Khata book, and what are they using it for?
Yeah.
And whether
Mm-hmm.
the use case is real or not, whether they are actually using it
Yeah.
for their business or not. And for example, what is the wallet share of their business that is captured in Khata book? They might be using other apps as
Mm-hmm.
well. So let's say they are using Oak Credit as well. That was one of the competitors.
Yeah.
Or they're using Tally.
Yeah.
So how much of that
Mm-hmm.
wallet
Mm-hmm.
size is captured by Khata book? So these are real challenges. We
Yeah.
spend a lot of time into building the data layer. And as I said, we were
Mm-hmm.
the founders had the vision that we onboard data engineering team. We had really good. We spend a lot of money in making sure that data infrastructure is good.
Mm-hmm.
We invested a lot in making sure we establish one data uh, source of truth, like a customer
Okay.
feed
Mm-hmm.
view. We built that
Yeah.
very early on, and he made sure that data is decentralized and everyone is able to use it. So
Mm-hmm.
that we were able to
Mm-hmm.
solve these problems.
And did you have a specific data quality team, or this was part of responsibility for everyone to make sure that the data continuously improves?
I think that that's what I love about startups, that we don't need one
Mm-hmm.
team to do a very specific job, and everyone takes equal
Mm-hmm.
responsibility of quality of data. So let's say if there
Okay.
are analysts working in the marketing team, it's their responsibility to
Mm-hmm.
ensure that we are getting the right data for the campaigns, and we are able
Mm-hmm.
to detect fraud, we are able to clean data, we are able to make one source of truth, and similarly for product, similarly for other aspects of the business like technology and operations as well. So it was decentralized. There was no one person to
Got
do
it.
it. Everyone had equal responsibility to make sure data is clean and reusable in analytically analyzable format.
Got it. And then you already mentioned about the use cases, right? So you mentioned that you started doing loans in a machine using a machine learning model. You also mentioned challenges around fraud, that whether the customer is
Yeah.
actually using the loan, etc. And then any other kind of big projects or impact which you delivered while you were at Khata.
Yeah, there were many. Khata Book initially started with one app called Khata Book, but during the
Mm-hmm.
time there itself, they had launched five different applications. One was called
Okay.
Pagara. It was used to
Mm-hmm.
manage the staff in a shop. Imagine
Right.
you're running a
Mm-hmm.
hypermarket and you have tens different staff managing the inventory, managing the customers, managing the cash counter. How do you make sure that you keep record of their attendances, their salaries that you're given, if you're given advance to someone? So
Yeah.
similarly, there was an invoicing app, and there were many other apps. We also acquired a business called Biz Analyst at that point of time, became a
Mm-hmm.
very core part of Khata Book. So we used to provide analytics support to all these products. So I think
And then this would bring in a lot more interesting data as well, right? So you move from, let's say, just a credit provider to someone who is capturing this data on a day-to-day basis, right? So it gives you a lot more color, a lot more character to the data which you're collecting through these additional apps.
yeah, absolutely. Now think about this: when you try tie back the data across the apps, you have the shopkeeper who runs the business. You know that
Mm-hmm.
how much are they selling or giving credit. You know how much staff do they have the possibility to know. If there was biz analyst, so you would know how much they are buying in terms of inventory from the market and who they are buying from. So
Mm-hmm.
in essence, you are building the supply chain for the SMB.
Yeah.
You know where the
Mm-hmm.
company is
Mm-hmm.
from, who are managing them and how much are they selling. And this is the beauty of this. Once you have the complete supply chain, that is where you can actually monetize in terms of, everyone needs working capital. So they would need money, they would need loans. So, and it's a win-win situation. So we could provide loans at a
Wow.
much lower rate to a much larger set of people.
Hmm. Interesting, interesting. And then moved on to Meta, and then I think you also moved to London at this time, right? So, can you tell how- the reason, or why make that shift, and then how did that happen?
Absolutely. So I was headhunted by Meta. I did not really have
Hmm.
plans to quit Khata Book. It was a fantastic journey, I would say. So much of learning experience. But then this opportunity came, and the division that they were hiring for was Metaverse division. And Metaverse
Mhm.
basically builds virtual reality products. And I'll be talking more about it later in the interview. But we are building virtual reality products in the space of work. How can you work in virtual
Mhm.
reality, or bring people to when
Okay.
they're working remote? Um, so I thought that this opportunity itself is very challenging. Uh, it has a lot of scope for future development, and it has a lot of scope for using data science as a skill set to build this further.
Mhm.
At that point of time in Khatabok, we had hired the complete team. Like when I came in, we were around 5, 6 people. We hired a team, scaled the team to 32. We had hired some leaders as well who could manage those teams. And I realized that it's time for me to pass on the baton and move on to a
Mhm.
space that is kind of a startup within Meta. It was not a very big product like WhatsApp or Instagram, but I could still have the look
Mhm.
of a startup in a global organization. So there's so much to learn there as well. Uh, and but they said that their location has to be in London. So then we as a family moved to London. I have a wife and a 4-year-old son. And yeah,
Mhm.
it has been 2 years since then. I would say it's a roller coaster ride, but I'll talk a bit more in detail about that later. That's how it happened.
Mhm.
You know, they,
Wow, interesting, interesting. So coming to your work at Meta, so can you tell a bit more about what you're building, and then what's the vision behind it, and then the role which data science plays in building a product like this?
Absolutely. I'll talk a bit about the vision first. So, as I said,
Hmm.
that I work in the division called Reality Labs. Reality Labs is in the forefront of making virtual reality or mixed reality a reality that people
Yeah.
use it in their day-to-day lives. And
Hmm.
if I were to describe it, it has three pillars. One is called social networking or social connections. Then one would be gaming,
Hmm.
and one would be work. So
Okay.
social connections and gaming are very prominent, and they are at the forefront of the use cases of virtual reality right now. You would see a lot of games being played in virtual reality. You would see Horizon worlds where people are meeting in virtual reality and getting to know each other through avatars. But then work is a space that really hasn't evolved. So
Hmm.
COVID hit us back 2 years back, and we totally shifted
Yeah.
the way we work. We all used to come to office. Now, working remotely is a reality. Even though we have return to office policies globally, there will be at least 10 or more percent of the people who will be completely remote on an average.
Right.
So, how
Yeah.
do you bring the same level of productivity that you had in office, the same level of connections, relationships, and getting work done? The current tools in the
Hmm.
market do not suffice for that. Like we can talk
Yeah.
if we are talking on a virtual camera, but it doesn't really give that feeling of sitting next to each other. How do you do that?
Correct.
That is where
Yeah. Yeah.
Meta will be shaping the future. So Meta is
Hmm.
products which will give you the presence that you're working with each other in the same room, seeing each other's body language, and able to get the same level of collaboration and productivity.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
this is the area of work. Right now, I head a product called Workplace. Uh,
Hmm.
which is a kind of a two-dimensional product right now. When I say two-dimensional, you can do chat, you can do video calls, and all the things you are able to do in any product. And the future is that we
Hmm.
want to link it to virtual reality and mixed reality, and be able to give a chance people to connect on video calls as well as in virtual reality environments where they can just sit next to each other with photorealistic avatars. So I would feel that Kunal is
Yeah.
sitting next to me and taking interview. And I would say a lot of
Got it.
people ask me like, how would it look like? I would tell them to go back and see an interview that happened with Mark Zuckerberg and Lex, where they had taken on
Yeah.
realistic avatars and talked to each other, putting their headsets on. That's a good representation
Correct.
of how
Correct.
people would
Yeah.
can talk
I
virtually.
remember seeing that. Yeah. Correct. Correct. Interesting. And so within this, what role does data science play, and what are the kind of challenges? Because this throws immense set of challenges, right? How do you, for example, bring out those interactions, which right now happen at a very subtle level, right? In terms of how we interact with each other, and then the physical interactions, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So can you elaborate a bit on that? Yeah.
One of the key roles of data scientist or the head of data science here is to set organization goals. And the most
Mm-hmm.
challenging is, how do you build organization goals for products that are maybe 5 years ahead of their time, which people might be
Mm-hmm.
deploying now. And you can see a lot of buzz around metaverse, people not really believing, probably in denial that this might not be a reality. uh, but keep progressing towards what you want to build, because we have a lot of conviction that this will work and this is the right thing to do to build the right level of productivity in the market. So setting organization
Mm-hmm.
goals is challenging, and it's especially challenging in an environment of meta where you will have so many leaders, thought leaders, spread across the
Yeah.
geography, across the globe, and interacting with them,
Mm-hmm.
bringing everyone on a common page, really thinking far ahead in the future. So I would say the future thinking, bringing the product strategy along, like in very close knit to the organization goals in terms of metrics, is the most challenging part that we play here as data science leaders. Uh, uh, the second is more around just the team itself of data science. Like when I joined Meta, I had team members from 13 different countries, and half of my team was remote.
Wow.
So we
Mm-hmm.
had people from France, from Germany, Scotland, US, and different parts of Europe, remote in UK, and then people who are coming to office. Then how do you manage that team? So this is an unparalleled experience that you will very rarely get in any other organization. How do you build empathy? There are, say, wars happening in Russia and Ukraine, and you have team members from those regions. You have there's
Mm-hmm.
war happening in Israel, and you have team members from Israel. How do you build empathy and real care for your team while you are getting things done? So this might be a understated skill set, but this is what really
Mm-hmm.
makes you and makes you empathetic leader for future, who can grow and handle large teams. So this is again one of the challenges. And the third challenge I would say is, how do you do analytics for products that go 0 to 1, where you do not
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of data which customers are giving you, but you still have to make the decisions as objective as possible. How do you use a combination of data and research and bring together a narrative that propels the product strategy and keeps it going?
Mm-hmm.
That is the third
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah.
So, like, these are top three.
Interesting. And and uh, just to elaborate a bit on the third one. So I mean, how do you do that? Any kind of headlines in terms of you are, I mean, the data in my view is mostly coming from user trials at most, and but you have to at the same time bring the product which is high fidelity. So what kind of tools and techniques or areas are you exploring?
I think there's no magic wand, but there's
Mm-hmm.
influence in the way you should solve problems when you're building 0 to 1 product. The first thing
Yeah.
to test for with data is the quality and functionality of the product that you're making. And especially
Mm-hmm.
when you're working in an enterprise product, the quality is in the forefront as compared to maybe a consumer product,
Correct.
right? You
True.
cannot go wrong. If there's a big meeting happening with the CEO, the call cannot drop. As simple as that,
Correct.
right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say in India, when I was working, the use of data to understand the quality of the product is still not to the level it should be. We do a lot of
Sure.
work in
Mm-hmm.
analyzing the customer behavior and the business
Yeah.
analysis of the product, but not as much on
Mm-hmm.
understanding the reliability, functionality, availability, and usability of the product. And that is
Yeah.
where Meta is far, far ahead from its, I would say, competitors or any other company in terms of use of data.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the most fundamental things we do when we go 0 to 1, because we do not have
Mm-hmm.
a customer base to tell us whether the product is good or not, right? So we at least make
Right.
sure that
Right.
we log in all the data, there are no crashes happening, and to make sure that we have enough usage, we call something as dog fooding. And dog fooding means
Mm-hmm.
that we internally test out the product. We create customers internally, like employees, and they would test out the
Mm-hmm.
product. Then we would select a small group of people. We call it as alpha or beta of the product, where we would
Mm-hmm.
companies can
Mm-hmm.
sign up who are interested in our vision, and then they can use the product. And that is where we get a signal both from quality, from actual usage, and also a good signal of the value of the product that it can deliver, where customers can tell either
Yeah.
through data, the way they're using the product, or through research, user research,
Mm-hmm.
whether
Mm-hmm.
the product is in the right direction or not. Once we get good signals on quality, we get good signals or yeah, the product looks good. Obviously it's not a
Mm-hmm.
full packaged and a polished product, but we get good enough feedback to go in the right direction. That is where we build the real product and launch it for general availability in the market. And then the
Got it.
real role of data science team starts, where they
Yeah.
start measuring
Yeah.
adoption, the retention, and the feedback, and keep that put that loop in the product development lifecycle, and make sure we're going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So, if I have to draw a parallel, right? So, if I look at, for example, the recent wave about generative AI, right? So, there was GPT, there was GPT-2, GPT-3, and I think the biggest impact by far has been via Chat GPT, right? Uh, uh, so, if I have to draw an analogy, where would the work you're doing, is it like pre-GPT stage? So it's still kind of gathering user feedback, and then dog fooding is the, for example, the source of data, or is it somewhere between GPT and Chat GPT, and then at some point you'll see a lot of response because it catches on at a large user base.
Yeah, so let me try to answer this in a way that how we are using the generative AI capabilities in our work right now,
Hmm.
and to kind of propel the work vision, the product vision that we have. We
Hmm.
are on the end where you use the generative AI application within our product. So there might be a central team in Meta who is building all these Llama models and generative AI application with the kind of open source within the company, and every product can use.
Hmm.
And we try to understand that what are the right use cases the business needs a customer might have, and how well they can
Hmm.
solve through generative AI. Right? So we are on
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
application side of generative AI, and my teams works on evaluating the models. For example,
Right.
someone
Right.
asks a question, is that the right answer they're giving or not? How do you use
Hmm.
analytics in making sure that the accuracy of the models is right? And it's such a nascent field right now in analytics on making sure the accuracy of models is right, because the kind of output that we get is not
Hmm.
you cannot really measure, right, until unless you ask the customer,
Yeah.
do you like it, do you think it responded well,
Correct.
do you think something is missing?
Yeah.
It's not really objective. So there is a
Hmm.
subjectivity part to the response, and how do you measure that to make sure that the models are effective is a very big challenge, and that is what my team is
Hmm.
right now working on. And I would say that this is one of the capabilities that companies should build for the future, because I see a lot of
Hmm.
advancement in generative AI. You can build a lot of application, but how do you know it's working? Uh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
the companies who are building generative AI should also invest in a division into measuring the effectiveness of it, to make sure that they're delivering
Hmm.
value to the customers.
Interesting. Interesting. And then I'm sure, I mean, there's an area which is almost developing every day in terms of the impact or the changes which are happening in the domain. Uh, Great. And so, in your team, when you, let's say, hire people or look out for talent, because a lot of these skills where people would be working on are non-existent today, right? Or are in very early stages of development. So how do you hire people, and then what skills do you look out for?
So is your question from the perspective of generative AI or in general?
In general, but generative AI or some of the latest, technologies, I'm presuming would be a part of it, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's in general, yeah.
So first, I'll tell you broadly when I hire what is my philosophy, and then especially for the skill sets of generative AI or machine learning or data science, what do we look for?
Hmm.
So we say in Hindi, there are three pillars that I hire for. One is called niyat, it means
Hmm.
character. One is
Yeah.
mehnat, called hard work, and the third is
Hmm.
kabiliyat, that is capability.
Capability.
So
Okay. Yeah.
these
Hmm.
three have proven to be the biggest pillars for hiring the right resources for the company throughout my career. Like I've been managing teams
Hmm.
since 2013. 10 years now. uh, and people who are good on all these three pillars are the best resources for the company. uh, we do a great job in understanding the capability is more correlated
Mhm.
to skill sets, but we don't really do a great job at understanding the character of a person, or understanding
Mhm.
how hard they can work, because we don't, obviously we are doing interviews, we don't have a lot of reference there, right? But if you
Yeah.
build those skills and try to ask questions there where it can be reflective of one of these two skills or two good reference checks, then we would have the right candidate. When it comes to the field of data science, I'll go a little deeper on the capability part, what are necessary
Mhm.
for people to have today who want to crack into this field. One is that they should have extremely good problem solving skills. Generative AI is not putting neural networks to a set of data.
Yeah.
Generative AI is solving a problem using this
Correct.
as a leverage. So if you don't know what you're solving, if you don't know how it can make the existing solution better, if you don't know what success looks like, then probably you are not doing it the right way. So we look for candidates who are really able to understand the problem it solved, how it added value, and how you measure the effectiveness of a particular solution, so that they understand the business application of it and not doing for the sake of it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Then the next step, once that is done, are the core skills. For example, we would test out that they have the machine learning fundamentals in place. They understand the difference between supervised learning, unsupervised learning, reinforcement learning, basic things like that. We would look at the programming skills if the job is of that nature that you need to really code an application, and it's like a job of machine learning engineer, let's say. You look at the that whether you know the libraries like say PyTorch, you would know TensorFlow, you have deep knowledge about them. You have a good command on some programming language, let's say Python, or any language of your choice, uh, right? Uh, so we would also make sure that you have patience and the right
Mhm.
abilities to do data manipulation and data cleaning. This might seems very futile, uh, and very trivial, sorry, but it is extremely core part of the job. We would generally go into detail on how you went through a project. We would try to understand
Mhm.
the challenges you faced, and did you deal with real data or just made up data? Because in real life
Interesting.
there is no clean data, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You have to spend a lot of
Yeah.
time and a lot of business acumen to clean the data. um,
Mhm.
so I think, and given the nature of the job and the type of applications you will be building, for example, if you're building generative AI models in terms in the field of text generation, then your
Mhm.
natural language processing skills should be good. If you're building in the field of image generation, then your computer vision skills should be in place. Uh,
Yeah.
right. So this I just told you about the field of generative AI, but it depends on the type of data scientist you're hiring. If it's more like a
Right.
learning engineer or more like an analyst requirements for job will be slightly different. More on the problem solving and business understanding side and knowing SQL and basic programming skills as compared to machine
Mhm.
learning.
Yeah. And I'm very interested in, understanding how you assess the other two parts, which is the hardworking and then the character of the person. So is there anything you have, by design put in the process where this comes out, or I mean, or you look at that at every stage? How do you do
Multiple things can help us look at that. Uh, but let me give a caveat: no one has perfected it. But
that? Right.
one are
Hmm.
situational questions. When you ask people to describe the situations they have faced, kind of challenges they have faced, and how they have overcome those challenges, the interviewer tries to get at the back of the thought process and the kind of option
Hmm.
the person evaluates before taking a decision. That kind of tells them that the way they're making choices, does it show character or not? Does it show respect or
Yeah.
not? Right? Does it show good negotiation and influential skills or not? So this is something that is has close correlation with character. Then
Hmm.
especially on hard work you can tell by a lot of times we also in not in Meta specifically, but in general would do reference checks where you would actually know
Yeah.
how the person is working, whether they are a hustler or not. You can also gauge by the kind of projects they have done and how deeply are they able to explain their project, whether they have in-depth knowledge or they have slightly shallow or superficial knowledge. Because people who are doing hard work would have very deep knowledge about what they're doing.
Yeah.
They would be able
Yeah.
to answer questions. They would have taken the effort to go deep enough to solve those problems, making sure the solution is right. So these are some proxies. There's a long way to
Hmm.
go in the total recruitment industry to make sure these two pillars are taken care of. But in general, this is the way we do it.
Sure, sure. Uh, Thanks, Arthur, for sharing that. I'm just a bit cognizant of time, and I want to touch upon something which I saw on your LinkedIn profile. So you also are part of a band and then pursue music on the side. So, I mean, what do you specifically play? And then does that, I mean, what stage is it? Is it just a hobby, or you're actually dedicated time around it? Okay.
So I told you when we started this interview, you asked me about my college, and I told you that
Yeah.
I discovered myself in bits. This was the
Mm-hmm.
first time I started playing an instrument. I used to see my friends and got inspired from them. I learned from YouTube. I play guitar, by the way. And
Mm-hmm.
in college, there was a music club. Got inducted in the music club. My friends were really really helpful in actually spending time teaching me and then performing along with me, and I really realized that I was missing this, and that's why I was saying that I was a nerd or very academically
Mm-hmm.
oriented. I did not discover myself, and suddenly I discovered this, and then I just followed it throughout my life. When I was in college, I was playing in bands, and then I joined my MBA college. In MBA college,
Mm-hmm.
we had a band called Oxymorons. That is what you see on my LinkedIn profile. So
Okay.
we used to go perform in college. We used to go to different technical festivals or culture festivals and perform there. Then I joined Musicma. Musicma, we had a band. We used to perform together. I think that kind of
Wow.
brings life to your life in a way,
Yeah.
else the
Mm-hmm.
life is very mundane. And after that, obviously my life changed. I have a kid. I got married. And
Mm-hmm.
I have more responsibility.
Okay.
So music was a sinusoidal curve for me. It started somewhere in
Mm-hmm.
college. It went very high when I was in doing my MBA and doing my job, the early phase, and then it kind of is at a place where it's still a hobby where I really enjoy, but the time I can spend
Okay.
is slightly lesser as compared to what I was doing before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I always wanted to
Got it.
touch.
Got it. Yeah. Great. Great. Thanks for sharing that. And any final thoughts? Anything you would want to share, especially for people who are, let's say, early in their career, and how should they think about next few years and shaping up their career?
The main difference between when we were studying and growing up and generation now is the level of access to free information and learning. That can be
Yeah.
very pivotal in defining success for this generation. So I would say that we are not limited to degrees and courses to learn. Right? We
Mm-hmm.
learn in different ways. So for this generation, I would say that um, important to figure out what you want. Try out a lot of things. It's freely available, and try to gauge your interest and then go deep. So breadth
Mm-hmm.
first and depth later. A lot of times
Okay.
go deep first and then realize, oh, by the way, we are too down the lane, and
Yeah.
I'm sitting in my 30s and 40s and I don't like my job. What should I do? And this is
Mm-hmm.
so common
Yeah.
in India. I won't tell you because the kind of career options are good, but they are gravitated towards few of them as compared to when I'm in
Right.
London or in US. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so go breadth first and depth second. There is no hurry of being successful. It's a very very long journey. The
Mm-hmm.
second is that grab opportunities. Even if you get to work in a small company, you get to work on a good project, don't think too much about money. Money comes later, but automatically. uh,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's a great dialogue in Three Idiots movie that work on your Kabiliyat, money will follow you,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Success and
Yeah.
money will follow you. So people who run after money first get in that trap on working for things that generate faster money rather than things that they actually love and that can generate long
Yeah.
happiness and future potential of good income. Yeah, so I think these are the fundamental things I hold to. Try to be very respectful because you are still learning. Hold
Hmm.
strong opinions, but hold them loosely. And the final quote that you would see on my LinkedIn profile is, "The harder you work, the luckier you get." This is what
Yeah.
my dad used to tell me. He's a doctor, and he
Hmm.
came from Himachal Pradesh and got settled in a city called Meerut. He didn't know how to speak English when he joined his
Wow.
course in college. He used to stand in front of a mirror and rehearse English, and that is how he put in the hard work to actually make a place for himself. And he used to tell me that
Wow.
just the harder you work, lucky you get. Is luck doesn't come overnight. There's thousands of nights that you have spent in hard work, and people just see the overnight success. So I really, really think that just keep growing yourself, compared to yourself to yourself one day back, and not to other
Hmm.
what you see on social media.
Wow. Thanks, Arpit, for sharing those insights and that perspective. I think it should go a long way in helping people early in their career, and I think some of the things you mentioned are really profound. So thanks for sharing that, and thanks for taking time out for the show.
No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, and hope it is able to inspire a lot of people who are going to step in this field and be the future for this world.
Thank you. Thanks, Arpit.